What's good? It's Jay Good with Sports. Besides this snowstorm that's happening right now, I'm trying to have a great day, and I hope you all too. Because I tell you what, I tell you who's not having a great day. Any and everybody that's involved in this lawsuit by Brian Flores. So for the ones that's been living under a rock or just not know exactly what's going on, former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Brian Flores, is suing the NFL and multiple teams for alleging racial discrimination. Now, for the ones that follow the NFL pretty closely over the years, we know that, this, just this topic alone, the allegations, this lawsuit here shouldn't be too surprising just because of, how owners, majority of the owners and the league itself operate with certain issues. But today we strictly going to talk about Brian Flores in this lawsuit. There is a lot to unpack, and I'm going to unpack it. All right, so I guess in this lawsuit, it's, multiple situations, multiple teams. The different teams include the Miami Dolphins, the New York Giants, the Denver Broncos. And so let's start with the Broncos here. Back in 2019, apparently the Broncos gave him a bogus interview to where, the main executives, probably John Elway, showed up hungover just to comply with the Rooney Rule. So for those that don't know, the Rooney Rule basically states that the NFL has to interview at least one minority in their search for a head coach for their team. And so apparently, with Elway or whomever showing up hungover just to get an interview done, that lets you know right off bat, if that was me and I see that, I know for sure I'm not, getting hired. Like, I've been in a situation to where I've interviewed for a job and the guy basically stated that, hey, you my last interview for the day, then I got to get out of here. He basically rushed my interview, and I knew right then and there I was not getting hired. So yeah, I feel that. That is terrible. And so, that's just one account of, a number of things in this lawsuit. Let's take it to the Dolphins, his former job. So the owner of the Dolphins, two things here. So the owner of the Dolphins back in 2019 offered him $100,000 per loss if they tanked. And at that point, there was a wave, basically a headline saying tank for Tua. That was a thing. Tua Tagovailoa, who was like the hottest quarterback name at the time, playing for the University of Alabama. Looked like he checked all the boxes. Like, this was like a sure thing, can't miss prospect at the quarterback position for a team that needed a quarterback. And so, Brian Flores, refused to do it, but basically the owner of the Dolphins and the word integrity shouldn't be in the same sentence at this point. But also on top of that, he wanted him to tamper with a prominent quarterback. So, meaning that while a quarterback is under contract with another team, he wanted Brian Flores to reach out to him and, I guess, start laying the foundation for him to join the Dolphins in the offseason. And what's being reported, that quarterback turned out to be Tom Brady. Now, as we know, Tom Brady ended up with Tampa Bay, but the fact that you have an owner here that wanted you to tank and was going to give you incentive to tank financially to do that, to get Tua, or basically, tamper with Tom Brady, if that's the case. And, Brian Flores was a longtime assistant of the New England Patriots. So him and Bill Belichick, they are very familiar with each other. And speaking of Bill Belichick, there's a third instance here with this lawsuit. And there's pictures of it, of Brian Flores screenshots of a text message conversation with Bill Belichick. And I read them, and it basically, in a nutshell, Bill mistakenly congratulated him for getting the Giants job, the New York Giants head coaching job, 3 days prior to his interview. And that text was actually meant for Brian Daboll, former offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. And it's astonishing. It's like, right in your face. There's no way to, dismiss, that conversation or a lot of these things. Like, how would you feel if you was Brian Flores, if you showed up to an interview and the person interviewing you was hungover? How would you feel if your boss said you had to do something that's, immoral, against, your values, and, that's, ethically right, and like basically put you in an uncomfortable position just for you to succeed, like to cheat your way to, being in a better position overall later? Like, how would you feel? And how would you feel if your former head coach that you worked under for a number of years, that you won Super Bowls with, mistakenly congratulating you when he thought he was talking to someone else that happens to have the same first name as you, and come to find out that you're basically interviewing for a job that's already given to somebody else just to probably comply with the Rooney Rule once again. And look, as far as the Rooney Rule, to my knowledge, it comes from, it started with the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Art Rooney. And coincidentally enough, Mike Tomlin, who is the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, is the only black head coach right now in the National Football League. And if you don't know, the Pittsburgh Steelers head coaching job is the most secured job in all of football. They've had 3 head coaches, in the last, 50, 60 years? That's how secure that job is in a job that, in an industry that, that is microwave, that want results right now, that like patience is not an option, chill deficient, however term you want to use it. Like that's like another word I want to use, astonishing. That's how, crazy that is. And so, when the NFL put the rule in place, like, I get it at the time, but it doesn't work. So, they want to, give an opportunity to minorities, black head coaches to interview and, try to get jobs. But at the same time, like, on the flip side, what we're seeing here is the worst case scenario, to where, teams already know who they want to hire, and they just going to, just comply with the rule because it's a rule, and like dismiss it. So at the end of the day, like, a team is going to hire whomever they feel, fits to what they're trying to do, their philosophy. They're going to pick the guy that they are going to believe that will get them, to the promised land, that will lead them to a Super Bowl champion. So at that point, with that mindset, it's like the Rooney Rule needs to be, addressed or canceled, and figure out another way to get more minorities in front office positions. Because otherwise, this trend is going to continue. Besides this snowstorm that's happening right now, kudos to Brian Flores for bringing this to our attention. Because I tell you what,
which, like I said earlier,
not having
like
a great day.
the ones that have been really following
Any and everybody that's involved
league,
in this lawsuit,
isn't too surprised, but just to bring it to the national
that's been living
spotlight,
under a rock, or
to
just
bring it out
not
front
know
and center
exactly what's going on.
The front
Former
page
head
of all
coach
the
of the
sports
Miami Dolphins,
newspapers,
Brian Flores,
magazines,
is suing the NFL and multiple
websites,
teams for alleging
social media,
racial discrimination.
Kudos to him. I mean,
for the ones that follow the NFL pretty closely,
I'm pretty sure
over the years,
we know
landing
that another coaching job in the NFL,
just this topic alone,
tossed out the window.
Allegations, this lawsuit here shouldn't be too surprising.
And Brian knows that. I'm gonna read you a statement that he posted yesterday. Quote,
owners,
God has gifted me with a special talent to coach the game of football
with certain issues,
but the need for change is bigger than my personal goals.
Brian Flores in
making the decision to file the class action complaint today,
and I'm going to
I understand that I may be risking coaching the game that I love.
So I guess in this lawsuit,
and that has done so much for my family and me.
Multiple situations, multiple teams,
is that by standing up
the different
against
teams,
systematic racism in the
Dolphins,
NFL, others will join to ensure the positive change is made for generations to come, unquote.
And so, let's start with the Broncos.
He knew what he was getting himself into.
All right, so back in 2019,
he is doing this for the greater good of the sport.
Gave him a bogus interview.
He recognizes that
where
his lifestyle is about to change.
Main executives,
but he
probably
hoped that his thumb and his impact on this
hungover just to comply with the Rooney rule.
So
for those that don't
make
know,
change
the Rooney rule
for the better in
states
NFL.
that the NFL has to interview at least one minority.
I mentioned earlier, Tom was the only black head coach right now.
Search for a head coach.
I know, like last year, Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, was a hot candidate. He didn't end up anywhere
with Elway or whomever showing up.
Just remember,
hungover.
My Bears having Lovey Smith,
and that lets you know right off the bat.
In my opinion,
and I see that.
Lovey's
I know for sure
second best.
I'm not
head coach in the Bears modern era.
I've been in a situation.
It's not even close, and I feel like he shouldn't have been fired the way he did.
And
the Bears haven't even recovered.
Basically stated that
hey, you my last
the Lovey Smith for the day. That I got to get out of here.
Figure out our way.
My interview, and I knew.
Then and there,
I was not getting hired.
One good year
in between,
maybe two. That's it.
That is terrible.
We haven't found our identity, but Lovey
was
the guy that
that's just one
that can inspire a group of men,
a number of things in this lawsuit
that can lead a team.
Let's take it to the Dolphins. His former job.
So
Herm Edwards,
the owner, Herm Edwards,
owner of the Dolphins,
growing up being a head coach
two things here. So the owner of the
Dolphins,
Dolphins,
Jets, and then the Kansas City Chiefs.
Back in 2019,
he couldn't find another job.
$100,000 per loss,
if I'm not mistaken, with the Arizona
if they tanked. And at that
Sun
point,
Devils, Pac-12 coach. So
the
Rooney rule has to go.
Basically, a headline saying tank for Tua. That was
apparently
Tua
teams not doing what they're supposed to be
the
doing.
hottest quarterback name
putting
at the time playing for the University of Alabama.
Guys in uncomfortable positions. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more of this happening. It just never can't mention until now
at the quarterback position for a team that needed a quarterback.
Is encouraging change.
Brian Flores,
even in the year 2022,
to do it, but.
I mean, change is still needed in a lot of ways. Systematic racism is a real thing in this country. Definitely outside of the NFL.
But also on top of that,
happens every day.
He wanted him to tamper,
with change. It starts with one step at a time.
A prominent quarterback.
So the guts,
meaning that
someone
quarterback is under contract with another team.
Having that distinctive will to reach out to cause change for the better,
and I guess
Brian Flores
laying the foundation for him to join the Dolphins in the offseason.
And to the system to afford it, that quarterback
flawed
turned out to be
situation.
So
now, as we know,
let's be real with Brian Flores.
Should never.
The fact that you have an owner here
from the Miami Dolphins,
I have a strong opinion on that.
Incentive.
He was there for 3 years
financially.
In his first year, they went 5-11.
But
the team that he inherited,
basically, tamper with Tom Brady.
It was
that's
garbage.
The case, and
complete garbage.
Brian Flores.
Was a longtime assistant. Of the 7 games.
Patriots.
So first 7 games they started out 0-7. They the second half of the year, the team gained momentum. They won 5 out their last 9, so they finished the year 5-11 with this lawsuit. Last 9 games, so they went 5-4.
There's pictures of it,
and if I'm not mistaken,
Flores
beat New England in the last game of the season.
Screenshots
to where New England could have had a first round bye.
Bill Belichick.
They ended up playing a wild card game against the Tennessee Titans, and Derrick Henry was the reason why Tom Brady played his last game in New England and ended up in the Tampa Giants the following year, if I'm not mistaken.
New York Giants head coaching
So then in
job.
2020, the
3 days
Miami
prior to
Dolphins,
his interview,
they finished 10-6,
and
the only reason why they missed the playoffs was due to a tiebreaker. It was 5 teams. 5 teams with the record of 10-6 at the time, 11-5. It was a crazy scenario. I remember that clear as day. That was one of the most exciting last weeks of the NFL season. And then this past year,
right in your face,
the Dolphins went 9-8. They started the season 1-7. And the reason why they started the season 1-7 because Tua Tagovailoa was out majority of that time, and they had Jacoby Brissett in there, and they was losing games they normally shouldn't have lost. I'm pretty sure the person interviewing you biggest valley
hungover.
How would that slump was when they lost in London to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who was coached by Urban Meyer, aka Mr. Grind on Me. That's what I call him, but. Nevertheless, again, he's not without a job. So anyway,
values and
start out 1-7.
That's
then
ethically right.
They finished the season 8-1. They had a 7-game losing streak.
Put you in an uncomfortable position.
They turned around and had a 7-game winning streak.
To cheat your way
winning streak. That's the first time ever in NFL
being
history
in a better position
that a team has had a 7-game
losing
losing streak and a 7-game winning streak.
And
in the
how
same
would you
season.
feel if
and the fact that they let him go?
They let him go coach that you worked under for
after that
a number of years.
After the team rallied,
that you won Super
I don't
Bowls
understand.
with.
Brian Flores is the reason why the Dolphins was competitive. The reason why the Dolphins
was talking to someone else that
happens to have the same first name as you,
become a turnkey
and
team.
Which I mean by that is you insert a quarterback, like a real quarterback, and that team is an instant Super Bowl
for a job. That's already given to somebody else,
like Aaron Rodgers. Like
just
you
to probably
Aaron Rodgers
with
to the
the
Miami Dolphins
rule once again.
Yeah, they might probably be the number 1 seed.
And look,
as far as the running rule,
Deshaun Watson,
to my knowledge, it comes from.
They are definitely a serious contender.
It started with the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Art. So yeah, for him to be without a job, coincidentally enough,
I guess
Mike Tomlin, who is
back
the
to
head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, is the only black head
integrity
coach
of the owner and what he
right now
wanted
in the
and,
National Football League.
Brian Flores doing the right thing.
And if you don't know, the Pittsburgh Steelers head coaching
very
job, sad situation
here.
Secure job. He was willing to make the sacrifice for the greater good. They've had 3 head coaches in the last 50, 60 years. That's how secure that job is. In a job that I do hope is more coaches, join him in that microwave that want to actually get real change in the NFL. They can give patience, all the face value they want, an option, chill efficient, however term you want to glamour. But if there's a flawed system, then in other words, something needs to be changed. That's how I definitely want to hear your thoughts. And so. Reach out to me. When the NFL put the rule in place, like Twitter, I get it at the time. My Twitter and my Instagram handles, J Good with Sports. It doesn't work. So they want to give an opportunity to minorities, let me know your coaches to interview and try to get jobs. There's definitely gonna be more of this. But at the same time, I'm curious to see what's going to happen. On the flip side, what we're seeing here is if the worst case Dolphins have to sell his team. Teams already know who what's going to hire. John Elway. Because I'm pretty comply with the rule because it's a rule, and there's some truth to all of this. At the end of the day, and a team is going to hire whomever out in the public eye, fits something's going to have to give. They're trying to do their philosophy. Something's going to have to give. They're going to pick the guy that they are going to believe, that will get them. I started to the promised land that will lead them to a Super Bowl champion. Tom Brady. So at that point, officially retiring and having a great career, it's like the Rooney Rule, 7-time champion, most passing yards, most touchdowns, canceled, and figure out another way to get more minorities. In front office positions. Great Tom Brady is. I started to because otherwise recognition, but when this news broke here, it's like I can't ignore it. Kudos to Brian Flores for bringing this to our attention. This is a serious situation. Which,
So,
like I said earlier,
again,
the ones that have been really falling.
Let me know how you feel about this.
I want to hear feedback.
Isn't too surprised, but just to
because
bring it
this
to
is
the
something
national
that's
spotlight,
not going away anytime soon. Front and center on the front page of all the sports newspapers.
I'll be back at you soon.
Websites.
Once again, Jay Good
with
with
social
sports.
media.
Peace out.